Hello and welcome to The Real Americans. I'm Tracy Coyer, your host, and today I am joined by Anthony Henry, host of America's Ass on
Derry TV.
Derry Public TV. Quite a compelling story. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Anthony?
All right, well, first of all, thank you for having me on the show. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Anthony Henry. I am a junior at Pinkerton Academy in Derry. I'm 16 years old, and as you said, I host my own show in Derry called America's Ass. I've interviewed many people from the political world in New Hampshire. I've had a lot of fun doing it. In addition to that, I am the chairman of New Hampshire High School Republicans, which I was one of the co-founders of. I'm very happy to have started that. We're getting some people involved in politics that wouldn't otherwise be involved. And, you know, my age group is the group that needs to get involved, because we need to clean up the mess that, you know, our previous generations have made. So, and plus, we're the new voters. We got to make sure that New Hampshire stays red.
Now, what kind of resistance are you running into in the school system by hosting or by being the president of that committee?
Well, we stay completely away from the schools. One unique thing that was my idea, we are not doing school chapters. We are doing one central chapter. That way we can circumvent school clubs entirely. We're just our own thing that meets outside of the schools.
Now, being in an academy, do you find that there's a political bias amongst the teachers and staff?
So the interesting thing about Pinkerton is that it's semi-private. It's privately owned, but they contract with the towns. There's 6 towns that use it. And I don't find there's a lot of political bias. I think if there is, the teachers do a very good job at hiding it. The administration is another story. There's been some controversial things that have happened. For example, a student wore a Trump flag as a cape one day, and he got called down to administration 5 times in one day for it. And then the administration denied that it ever happened when an investigation happened by one of our state reps.
Now, you also have some involvement in the school committee.
Yes, well, I'm in my second year now. I was reelected in June by my classmates. I'm in my second year as the student member of the Derry School Board. I give updates on what's going on at Pinkerton to the school board, because as I said, it's semi-private. Our school board does not control Pinkerton Academy. So I give the updates on what's going on, school events, etc., big changes to Pinkerton. And recently I also joined the Derry School Fiscal Advisory Committee, which is basically the budget committee. I was just reading through the policy because I was trying to get some people I knew to sign up, but no one would sign up. So I was reading through the policy and I noticed in the requirements it only said you had to live in Derry. Never said anything about being an adult, registered voter, anything like that. So I drove down to the superintendent's office and I applied. And at the next meeting I was approved on a 6-1 vote.
Interesting. So not only are you a student, but you also have your interest in what goes on. That's great.
Yeah, I'm very passionate about our school district. We've had an interesting school board over the past 5 or so years. Wide variety of characters have been on there, some good, some bad.
And how do you find it now? Do you find that they're allowing things to take place that shouldn't be in the department, or do you think that it's pretty much in line with the way it should be?
So the big controversies that we've had in our school district haven't really been politically partisan issues. They've just been major mess-ups that our school board has made. So I'll go through the big thing that happened last year into this year. So at the time, last year, we had 5 elementary schools. Barca, Derry Village, South Range, East Derry, and Grinnell. The school board wanted to cut the budget. At the time, it was a 6-1 Democrat majority. Well, I shouldn't say Democrat. There's actually some Republicans in that group. But, wrong of me to say Democrat, but that block is just not good. I don't like their views. They're good people, but they're very misguided. But the 6 of them decided they want to close an elementary school because they thought it would save money. And the town did not like it. Parents showed up to meetings, every meeting for a few months, demanding that they not do it. In the end, they decided that Derry Village would close at the end of this past school year because they felt it was in the most disrepair.
Okay.
And they voted on that. There was nothing the town could do about that. People were very upset, but in the end they accepted it because there wasn't any, we couldn't overturn that decision because the board made that. However, a couple months later, they made this wild mistake of trying to close South Range as well, and in turn, opening a new school to replace the two that they closed. Now, Derry Village was closing either way, and in the March election, which was this past March, they put on the ballot to close that other school while simultaneously opening the new school. If that new school had passed, which it didn't, and I'll get into that, it would have cost $72 million, and it would have had a projected tax rate increase on the school side alone of $700 per year for 15 years, which would have priced just about every family in Derry out of there, and any new family that's young. Now, I said I'm an advocate for, my age group, the young people. Any young person that wanted to move to Derry would have looked at the taxes and been like, no. I mean, we have great schools. We have great teachers. Our schools are run fairly well. Most of the time, there's not a lot of bad stuff happening. But that was just pure mismanagement. And if that had happened, we would have lost families. Now, that was on the ballot because obviously that's a lot of money, along with the budget. And then they wanted an extra 38 or so million to renovate all the other schools, which admittedly we did need because for the past decade or so, they've deflected maintenance, which is horrible that they did that, but still we needed that money too. So we needed that to pass. The budget, I had mixed feelings on, and then this weird closing a new school. So March election came. The two members that were up on the school board both decided not to run again. We had two people on my side run unopposed, but then the two people that weren't running threw in a write-in for some random person. Our people still won. Our two people are Wilbert Danger, immigrant from Haiti. He's going for his doctorate in organizational leadership, nonprofit runner, former teacher, just self-made guy, amazing guy. I was very proud to have been his campaign manager. And then Katie DeLay, who was one of the activists, one of the parents that had spoken at all those meetings. The two of them, they balanced each other out, and they won fairly solidly against that write-in. And then as for the Warren articles, the new school and the school closure, 600 yes, 2,400 no. And then the budget, for the first time in 25 years, failed. And the renovations needed 60 to pass. They only got 52%.
So no renovations, no new school. So what's going on with the maintenance on those facilities?
That's what they're working on now. They need to pick up where they left off because we needed that, and they roped it in with this vanity project they tried to do, and it failed. So now they need more money, and they need to find something that everyone will agree on.
So they were looking for over $100 million. It got shot down, and rather than separating the two items to get the money they needed for maintenance, they tried to do it all at once.
They should have done it separate years.
Absolutely.
And it was, again, pure incompetence. I suspect it was the reason those two people that were up back in March, they didn't run again. And we got two of our people up to help out Brenda Willis. Brenda, who was on our side, she's been there 24 years, which is a long time for any school board member. And she faced so much criticism from the rest of the board for not going with their plan, even though she's been there a lot longer than any of them, by decades. And just to see her get downright bullied at the meetings by them, especially then Chairman Dugan, was just really sad to watch. And Chairman Dugan, he would roll his eyes and scoff at anything he didn't like that Brenda or anyone in the audience would say. Vice Chairman Clapp, who is now chair of the board, attempted to attack someone in the audience.
Really?
It happened to be the husband of a state rep, and he only sat down because that state rep was filming.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, it's a complete mess. We definitely need to clean it up again in this election. We're really close. They only have a 4-3 majority now when they used to have a 6-1. So yeah, it's a lot. And now that I'm on the fiscal advisory committee, so I don't have a vote. That's a unique thing about our budget committee. We don't vote on the budget. We advise it.
Okay.
I'm just going to learn. I have to learn a lot because I've never done anything like that before. I'm going to get basically a hands-on education as to how a school board budget works.
Well, I wish you luck with that.
Oh, in the past few years, it's gone over $100 million. I expect it'll be the same this year.
Now, what's the standard operating budget for? Is the standard operating budget for the schools $100 million?
Yes.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah, especially for now 4 elementary schools and 2 middle schools.
And what's the population in Derry?
The total population is 34,000, and the schools somewhere 3,000 to 4,000, I'd guess.
Interesting. That's a lot of money for a small amount of people.
Yeah, it is, and I think the message I'm trying to bring home here, local politics is the most important politics, in my opinion. It's where the most decisions that impact you are made. Obviously, a lot goes on at the State House and in Congress and so forth, but the school boards, the town councils, if you live in a city, the mayor, they're all the really important ones. They're the ones that make the big decisions, and if you want to get involved, that's where you really need to start.
So, how did you get involved? I mean, you're a young kid. What lit your fire to get where you are?
Quite simply, COVID. I didn't like all the mask and all the vaccine stuff. So that's how I first met the school board. I went to a meeting and I protested the mask mandates.
Interesting.
And that was definitely a fight. I actually spoke at the last meeting that there was a mask mandate at. They removed it 4 days later. In my speech, I guess, I had reported something that actually happened that I saw.
And what was that?
In a class, and obviously I won't say who the student and the teacher are, a student with special needs had his mask down about that much, not even all the way down. And the teacher pointed at him and said, "Put your mask up. I won't negotiate with a terrorist." So I went to the meeting and I said that, and then magically 4 days later they decide they don't need masks anymore.
A terrorist.
Yeah.
And this kid's 13, 14 years old?
At that time we were in 8th grade, yes.
Wow. It's amazing that we're breeding terrorists in Derry. I was completely unaware of that. Wow. So
COVID was what lit my fire. Obviously, it was a very politically charged time, not just with COVID, but even before that, there was the 2020 election. That was a big deal.
Yep.
It caused a lot of people to get involved, especially through social media. There was the big wave of Instagram activists and all that. And I was one of them. I rode the culture wave, I guess, and I got involved. But then after COVID, I stayed involved because I realized it's not always going to be this exciting. It's the boring stuff that's actually really going to matter. So even after COVID, I kept going to those meetings. And eventually I started going to some House sessions and Senate sessions, meeting all of them, meeting all the big players and talking to them, seeing what's actually going on and not just reading some headline on social media or the news. Once you actually show up, you see how different it is and how just wrong the media portrays it.
how long were the schools closed in Derry?
They were closed from, so in 2020, they were closed from, I think we closed in March. We were closed the rest of the school year. We returned in 2020, and we were closed again from around Thanksgiving of 2020 until March-ish of 2021.
What kind of effect do you think that had on you and your fellow students?
We didn't learn properly. None of us did. We were all on, computers.
Do you think everybody or most people have managed to combat that hurdle and are back on track, or do you think that they're still behind?
Some of them certainly have gotten back on track, and some of them haven't. It was definitely a big impact on us, as I assume it is for the rest of the country. And another thing that Derry did that I think is very detrimental to us is that they changed the way everything is graded. In Derry, from kindergarten to middle school, we no longer have A, B, C, D, F. We have this, I forget what they even call it, but there's 4 grades. An IP, which means you didn't do your work, an LP, which means limited proficiency, an EP, which means emerging proficiency, and a DP, which means demonstrating proficiency. So there's only those 4 grades, which I think they thought would, they introduced it during COVID, I assume, because they thought it would be easier on all of us. But they kept it after COVID for, I guess, inclusivity's sake. I think that's what they said. And that's been very detrimental too, because kids are getting the wrong grade. You can get a DP, which is the high grade, when in reality you're a B- student. And when you get to Pinkerton, which still has proper grades, you're getting put into the wrong classes that are either way too hard or way too easy.
Oh, that's going to affect everybody on their college applications and everything else.
Oh yes, oh yes, and it's something I want changed. Some of the members on both sides, to their credit, have voiced that concern, including myself. It's something that I definitely want to see changed.
I have to tell you, I was completely unaware of the new grading system, but then again,
I don't think it's in many school systems. If you haven't heard of it, I'd assume it's not here in Merrimack, but it's here in Derry from K through 8.
So in high school, it's back to standard letter grades.
Yes, well, because Pinkerton is not run by the school district.
Correct. Is it all the high schools or just Pinkerton that is exempt from that?
Well, it was Derry that made that decision just for Derry.
Okay.
I don't know what any other town does. I'd assume they don't, because I haven't really heard of it. But Pinkerton's their own thing, and they still have proper grades.
Excellent.
Numbers and letters.
And the people that you hang around with, for lack of a better term, do they share your views? Are they supportive of you? Are you criticized on a regular basis? What's your baseline like?
Mix of all of them. I definitely have a lot of people that agree with me. I have my own fan base in what I do at Pinkerton.
Okay.
I have some people I disagree with. There's some of them that are outright nasty to me, and there's some of them that I have really good discussion with, that, we don't agree, but we can talk it out and, see what we do agree on.
Isn't that the way it's supposed to work?
I wish it was that way.
Yeah, it's typically not. I mean,
Not anymore.
yeah, it's
That's
a
another
little
thing
more
that
divided than it should be.
It's another thing that COVID did. It divided everyone even more.
Now, knowing what we know now about the COVID situation and the fact that the 6-foot rule was just something that they dreamed up one day, knowing that the schools never needed to be closed, and there's even question about the severity of COVID, and I mean it all depends on what you read, who you rely on, and the accuracy of the sources. This whole thing could easily have been avoided. And there are several states across the country that didn't involve themselves in this foolishness, for lack of a better term. Do you think that if something were to happen now, that people would be as passive and accepting of the law that they set down, or do you think people would actually resist a little bit more like yourself?
I think they would resist more because they see, everything that they tried to do was false. They tried to control us. They tried to divide us, which they were successful at.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that the vast majority of Americans will not let that happen again.
Well, the whole COVID shot was the biggest bullying technique alive.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if you get the shot, you're not going to be able to catch it, and you're not going to be able to give it to anybody. Turns out none of that was true, but it was all peer pressure. I've had people say, well, take one for the team, get the shot. It's like, hell no. First off, I'm allergic to some of the things that are in it, so that's a death sentence for me. And it turns out to have been a death sentence for a lot of people. And everybody just kept pushing. Well, you can't come to Thanksgiving unless you've been vaccinated and wear a mask. It's like, well, I thought if you were vaccinated, you didn't need to wear a mask. But if I'm not welcome in your home because, it's my body and I'm not sticking an experimental treatment into it, then, yeah, I'm probably better off staying home.
Yeah.
It was a very unfortunate time. And it divided people, families, a lot of families are estranged from each other because they still buy the lie, if you will. You know, and I was in the grocery store the other day, and they were advertising on the loudspeaker another booster. Ooh,
Yeah.
wow, that's
I never got the shot.
yeah. And they try people going into college. Well, if you don't get the shot, then you can't come to our college. Okay, I'm not going to your college.
Yeah.
But the amount of pressure that they put on was just amazing. But, you know, when we allow illegals to cross our southern and northern border, oh, they don't need to get the shot. How absurd. How absurd.
And that's an issue that really makes me angry, the border, because I am the descendant of Italian immigrants that came to America the right way and worked hard and became, comfortable, successful. But they had to work for everything
Yep.
that they had. But all these people can come in and get free housing, free health care, free everything, just for coming here.
Well, that's called being compassionate, isn't it?
According to the federal government.
Yes. Yes. We have homeless vets all over the country, homeless population all over the country, and they don't get any housing. They don't get any benefits. I mean, aside from, some limited benefits, but my gosh, if your last name happens to be from another country and you just cross over the border, here's $10,000, $15,000, $14,000 a month for food, whatever it is. I'm getting off track, way off track. But it's time to take care of American citizens and start to realize that, during the time of Ellis Island, probably when your parents came over.
Great-grandparents.
Great-grandparents, I'm sorry. So was it in the 40s or was it before that?
I believe it was somewhere around 1910.
Okay.
I think. Well, they came in through Boston.
Okay.
So.
And if they had been sick or affirmed, they would have been turned around and sent back.
Yeah.
We're not turning anybody around. And there were a lot of people during that time that, you needed a sponsor. You needed a lot of things to get over here. You had to be in good health. You had to show that you could work. There were a lot of requirements. Now there is no requirements. Show up, here you go. We've got people waiting in line for, 10, 15 years to get their citizenship, and we've got people walking right across, and now they're talking about making them all citizens, and a lot of them are already registered voters, which is awesome. I think I saw a statistic yesterday that 14% of the people that came over through the amnesty program are already registered to vote. That's kind of scary.
Yeah.
And whenever somebody says, well, you have to be an American citizen to vote and you have to present an ID, well, they're not American citizens, but we're giving them IDs, and now there's no way to tell who's who. It's frightening.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
And like you said, all politics is local, and I can't remember which state. I think it was New York that passed a law that non-citizens could vote in local elections. There's no skin in the game. Why?
I mean, if that were a law here, you could come to Derry and vote in our election, and if I were a voting age, I could vote in Merrimack's election. It makes no sense.
Well, that'd make it much easier for someone to cheat, wouldn't it?
It would.
So, what are your plans for the future?
Still kind of uncertain. I am planning, as of now, that could change, on going to college. Not quite sure what for yet. There's definitely a lot of people approaching me to run for office, which I will do if I can. I'm not going to do it if it comes out where I need to put college or something else first. I'm going to do that first. But if I can reasonably run for something and balance it with whatever else I'm doing, whether that be college or a job or something else, I will definitely do that.
How about city council? Has that crossed your mind?
Town council has. I think we have a good group on there right now. I wouldn't. There's no one on there I'd want to run against. I'll put it that way.
Very good. Very good.
On both sides, we have a really good mix of people that care about Derry.
Excellent.
If I were to run for something, it would be school board or state rep. At least that's what I'm thinking right now.
Interesting choices. Now, have you found that your involvement politically takes away from your studies or takes away from any of your personal time?
I balance everything, and in sometimes I mix it.
Interesting. Interesting.
I mean, I have some of my close friends that work on my show. Because I'm not good at technology, so they'll come in and edit the show in the editing room for me.
Nice.
And they also get to meet the people I'm interviewing. And, it's a good way of hanging out with my friends, and then they get to see what I do.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, we've got about a minute left. Is there anything that you would like to tell the people that are watching?
So you can find my show, America's Ass, ASS, and the story behind that, just briefly, a friend of mine, his liberal girlfriend, once called me that. So that's the story behind that. But the show, you can find it on YouTube, America's Ass with Anthony Henry. It'll pop up. So watch the videos, subscribe, hit the bell so you get notifications when a new one comes out. I'm coming back to the show this week, actually. I've been on break since March to do, summer things, finish the school year. But we're coming back to that, so make sure you watch that. And if you have, a kid or someone who would want to get involved in high school Republicans, give me a call. My number is 603-260-2568. Give me a call, send me a text. I will be happy to get them involved in any way I can get them involved. So.
All right, well, that's going to wrap us up today, Anthony. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure to meet you as well.
I'm sure you're making your parents proud.
I am.
And I look forward to seeing how you make out over the next few months and few years.
Well, thank you, and you as well.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.